Okay, well, I think that's a number of people joining. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining this presentation today. I know it was invitations were sent around on short order. However, we thought we'd take the opportunity to provide some further detail on some pretty exciting news related to Nevada Lithium Resources. This is a company that the Power One Group has been invested in for a number of years now. And we are really excited about the prospects for this company and its projects. I was actually just on site a few weeks ago, and I've been involved, as you know, with Power One in a number of very successful lithium projects, starting back with Lithium America as Nye Lithium, and this one, from our perspective, seems no different. It certainly has all the hallmarks of what may, eventually become a tremendous success. And what is even more unique about this project is its location. The property is located in Nevada. You can literally drive there from the I-95 highway in a couple of hours, right off the highway. Incredible infrastructure. The project is enormous. I think it's one of the largest in North America and has the potential to be one of the largest deposits in the world. And what's happened in recent months is that the company's been able to acquire 100% ownership of the project now. And so I would just take a little bit of an opportunity, provide an update, on the project itself, plans going forward. There'll be a lot more information to come. The company is sort of really now taking the opportunity to work to increase its awareness throughout the marketplace, which was a challenge based on the previous ownership structure. But I think the pieces of the puzzle are now in place, and we're really happy to be involved, along with some other very significant strategic shareholders that have joined the company recently. And with that, I will turn it over to Steve and Jeff, CEO and VP Exploration of the company. They can give a presentation, and we can open it up to questions at the end. Thanks again for joining.
All right, super. Thanks, Dave, for the introduction. I'm Steve Rentschler. I'm the CEO. Jeff Wilson is with me as our VP of Exploration to answer anything if you want to get into the weeds with geology or any of the other technical aspects of the project. But obviously, we've had some very exciting news here over the course of the last couple of days in terms of finally getting 100% of this project under basically one ownership structure, which I would argue is probably the largest reason that you've ever heard of us before. So I'm going to take you through the presentation just by way of a very short history. About very close to 3 years ago, it was when the first slice of Bonnie Claire was put into Nevada Lithium, a 20% slice. Subsequently, another 30% was acquired at the end of December of 21. And the rest of the time, the money that was put into that, which was approximately $5.5 million US, went into the ground. So there's been a substantial amount of money that's been invested. This is not your typical junior exploration company play. We have a PEA. We've made some significant advancements with regards to metallurgy. I've been involved with natural resources development for on the order of 30 some years, and I have never seen supply and demand set up like this. Okay, disclaimers. So here's the snapshot, the summary at a glance. We'll go through, obviously, these in more detail as we go through. But first and foremost, this is not a story just about in situ resources. Even though we're, at this point in time, I think the second largest in North America, barely behind Jindalee McDermott in terms of an inferred resource, the PEA was done over a year ago, which came back with very attractive metrics, which at that point in time were using relatively low lithium carbonate equivalent prices, LCE prices, $13,400 a ton prices. And you can see the metrics here. This was announced in October of 21, but mid-20s IRR after tax, $1.5 billion NPV using an 8% discount rate, 32,000 tons a year for 40 years. Arguably, if we could get going in 2030, this would be somewhere in the order of 1% of global supply of lithium carbonate. What you have to put this now into context is rising lithium prices. I mean, this is obviously a whole nother discussion as to what you think long-term lithium prices are, but I don't think they're 13,400. And when we put this press release out, I asked the engineers to give me the table of NPV sensitivity to different prices, and they stopped at $30,000 a ton. I didn't want to be accused too much of arm waving, but you can see already you're at almost $6 billion on an after-tax basis, net present value, 60% IRR. and a payback gets down to basically 3 years. The point is, this is tremendously sensitive to rising lithium prices, and I think that we have a very favorable lithium price environment moving forward. The mining jurisdiction, it doesn't get any better. This is Nevada in the USA, traditionally has just an excellent history, gold and silver mining going back over 150 years. Obviously, the most important thing that's come out of the US lately is the Inflation Reduction Act, which conveys electric vehicle tax credits to, essentially battery makers, car makers who use US sourced materials in their components. This is going to be a top priority for many of the car companies going forward. We also have phenomenal infrastructure. I'll show you pictures of that later, as David alluded to, right off a highway. You really couldn't ask for a better place. Even though you're in the middle of nowhere, you're not really in the middle of nowhere. And that's pretty much how a lot of Nevada is. I believe when you see some subsequent slides here, you're going to see that Nevada is going to emerge as the future of the US lithium industry. There are other very large projects that are more advanced than we are. There are also a number of brine projects. But the reality is the geology, these very expansive sort of sedimentary and clay deposits, lends itself to finding more here. And I think we're going to see that over time, common infrastructure is going to be developed, as you would see in the coal fields or the Pilbara, just because of the magnitude of these projects going forward. On the top right side of the column, you'll see size and optionality. As I mentioned, Bonnie Claire at this point in time, second largest in North America with regards to the inferred resource. But it's a huge land package as well. The footprint is enormous. I'll show you a picture of its equivalent in a second, but it's larger than Manhattan Island. We have only explored part of it, yet we are going on to our PFS right now. But the point is that we will be exploring other parts of it for additional resource, particularly with regards to brine. And there's plenty of room here to do everything. One of the things that I think sets us apart from PEA peers is the fact that we have advanced metallurgy. I would argue that this is really one of the keys at this point in time. Though we have to spend a lot more money to finish PFS with regards to drilling and other things, we're very far along with our metallurgy. This is not a brine deposit, so this is not hook it up to a well and pump it into a DLE black box. This is very conventional type of metallurgical processes that have been developed independently from us by very well-known metallurgists in Colorado. We get basically about 80% recovery from the primary and the secondary recovery processes. The secondary process is very off the shelf, and the primary recovery process does not use sulfuric acid, which is very beneficial from the ESG profile. Talk about that more in a second. We also have potential for additional revenue streams, which are going to enhance the economics. And from a sustainability perspective, again, we have our location with regards to end users. We have a minimal greenhouse gas footprint because we're not talking about shipping material to concentrators in China and then shipping finished material to battery makers. The idea here is that we would produce a finished product, either lithium carbonate or hydroxide, and ship that right to battery makers who are not that far away in the Midwest of the US, or Tesla's up to the Northwest in Nevada, but very beneficial. And we also have a very nice profile with regards to not using sulfuric acid that the European end users in particular like to see. And we have alternative energy. We're just sort of in the cradle of America in terms of alternative energy. I'll show you some pictures, but it's solar, it's wind, and it's hydropower coming from the Hoover Dam, which is situated only a few hours away from Bonnie Claire. That's it at a glance. I'll use that to segue into why I think we could say that we're in particular more advanced than a lot of other PEA and developers, and then talk about the value proposition early on here. There's a lot of talk here about all these projects that are going to come on paper over the course of, say, the next decade. But what I think some of the more astute observers and analysts are picking up on is you're not always sure if you're going to be able to produce a battery-grade material. The bar is very high. The impurity levels are very low. The concentration of the carbonate itself has to be very high. And we've already proven that we can get there. So what you're looking at here is something that's 99.9% pure, has got minimal impurities in terms of other elements like boron, potassium, iron, and passes the specifications of two of the largest producers in the world. The value is here. We know we can produce this. So then let me just take this now. We'll go to 30,000 feet for a second about Bonnie Claire. A couple of ways that you could get the value out of this, the way I think about it over time. Obviously, you could build this and you see what the net present value is, given, pick your long-term lithium prices. But arguably, if it's in 40,000, 50,000, somewhere in there over time, you're looking at an NPV that's $6-7 billion. Of course, our market cap right now is around $60 billion. You would, of course, suffer some dilution as you would continue to fund PFS and FS along the way. But you see there's a tremendous amount of value there that you would expect to basically accrete over time as you get to production somewhere out in 2029, 2030, if everything goes on schedule. Alternatively, what I've seen over the years is a lot of these projects, they get developed to a certain stage, whether it's PFS, between PFS and FS, and you basically get somebody involved. You can get taken out for a slice of net present value. And I would argue that's also a very attractive metric. If you say we get 2 years down the road, 2.5, somewhere in there, and we're able to get 25% of a feasibility study indicated net present value of $6-7 billion. If we get a quarter, we get 30% of that. Obviously, we're talking a slam dunk by the same token, $1.5-2 billion with some extra dilution that we'll need to incur, but minimal compared to taking it all the way out. So I would argue that is the value proposition. If we can minimize dilution going forward, I think you can see that the size of each slice of the pie could be tremendous for investors who are getting in here. After all the dust has settled with the concurrent financing that happened with the financing that allowed us to get the other 50% of Bonnie Claire. We could give you the structure, all the strikes of the warrants, et cetera, if you want them later on. I just wanted to give you an idea. So, somewhere around 200 million issued and outstanding now, and another 100 million of warrants stepped up, going up anywhere from 20 cents, 25 cents, et cetera. And we can get you that detail, as I said, going forward. The management team of Nevada Lithium has changed a little bit with some recent additions. Most notable, which is Richard Kern. He's our COO now. He is the CEO of Iconic Minerals, and Iconic was our previous partner on Bonnie Claire. Catherine Lathwell, who is our CFO, who was affiliated and recommended by Power One to come along. She has joined us now. And Jeff Wilson, on the call with me very recently, moved from being a director to being our VP of exploration, as Darren Smith moved into a senior technical advisor role. This will be the new team going forward. Richard Kern obviously has a lot of historical knowledge about the deposit itself and facilitates a lot of what we're doing with the work program going forward. The board of directors has also changed. Now, with the addition of Iconic members, who would be Richard Kern and Katura Nath, we also have Jerry Wang, who is affiliated with Power One, coming on as a representative. And what I did not put here was an additional representative who's coming on from the Ramphystos group. This is Marcel's group in Holland, only because we don't have the paperwork done. But really, the way you should think about it is there are 6 members here, and that same group will have the ability to appoint another board member in the future. So there will ultimately be 7. So we're very excited. We have a lot of different abilities on this board. We're right now in the process of going through getting sorted out our initial budget going forward. All right, here's I want to just sort of give you the very quick and dirty on supply and demand in the lithium sector. Demand is basically locked in here as a consequence of all of the governmental pushes for electric vehicles. All of these things that are being put down legislatively without regard to what the reality is. Nonetheless, the car companies are busy ripping out their internal combustion engines facilities, the die and the tooling. They're laying off people, who have that historical knowledge with gasoline and diesel engines, and they're making the transition to batteries. What I try to get people to understand when we talk about, what will lithium prices be? Well, you just simply don't have a real cost curve, I would argue, to fall back on, or an incentive type of a price that you can point to, because there's not a bunch of lithium mines that are on care and maintenance. In other commodities, if you're talking about accelerated growth, you're talking about GDP plus 1 or 2%. And if metal supplies start to go down, what do? Well, you start bringing things on out of care and maintenance. You bring on the high cost producers, all those sorts of things. Well, here, none of that fallback position basically exists, right? You're going to have X amount of lithium. It's going to go to the highest bidder. And what I try to tell these car companies is if you have not secured the supply, you might not even be able to buy it at spot. So how do you calculate what the opportunity cost is when you can't put a car in the showroom? And it's starting to resonate. I have no problem thinking about higher lithium prices than $30,000 as long-term prices going forward. And in that context, I think that you can, again, see the value in something like Bonnie Claire. This is just a quick panoramic shot of Bonnie Claire. And this is one of these strange types of photographs where, because those mountains are so far away, you really can't get an idea of just how big this is. But this is kilometers over to those mountains. And on the other side of that is California and Death Valley. And it's an even longer expanse from the right to the left, or in this case, the north to the south. This is essentially a big sort of salt flat. I think about it like the Bonneville Salt Flats, and a big depositional environment over time. The lithium just got laid in here with volcanoes, and I'll let Jeff talk to you more about that. To put it in context that you can see, basically our project is the size of Manhattan Island here, from Battery Park down in the south all the way up to Harlem. And you take the East River and you put that all together, and that's Bonnie Claire. That's the footprint of what I just showed you. As I said, the inferred resource up here at 18.3 million kilos is just a little bit shy of what Jindalee put up with McDermott. But it's essentially, at this point in time, we don't need any more. In our PEA, we're using 5 or 6%, I think, of the entire resource that we have. This is more than enough to supply a mine that has got global consequences, supplying 1.5% of lithium capacity in the world. This is a good idea of what's going on in Nevada, and why I think you're going to see that this is going to become the heart of the US lithium industry. Here's Vegas down here in the southeast corner. Here we are. It was about a 2-hour drive. I took it when I was out at the Fast Markets Conference the other month. You get up here another hour or so. Albemarle has the only existing brine project mine operating in the US right now. There's a slew of other brine projects that I don't have marked in here that seem to be developing. But the point that I would mention is that they're looking and will be using water from a different area than where we are. One of the benefits that we have about being where we are, apart from great infrastructure to start, is the fact that we're not going to be competing for water there. Now, we don't know exactly the water that we need yet. We're doing our mass balances. But when we get to that point, we're going to be talking to the town of Beatty, who's already indicated that they have water rights essentially underneath us, and that they would be amenable to giving us what we need. Now, I will tell you, over the last couple of years, there's been a tremendous amount of rainfall that's occurred in this area, and the opportunity exists to basically capture that during periods of the year and use it at a later point in time. But the point is, you could see everything from Thacker and Jindalee up here at the very northern part, Clayton Valley, over here, other ones starting in here. I think you're going to have a common infrastructure coming in here with rail, with electric, et cetera, building upon what's already there. And you're going to see this servicing the rest of the U.S. There have also been some very good indications that the government is really going to get behind Nevada. One thing that you should understand is that over 50% of Nevada is actually owned by the federal government in the U.S. So this is Bureau of Land Management. So it means we're going to, have to deal with the BLM for permitting. It's onerous, but it's well understood. We know the steps. We can get through it because of the size of this project. With regards to permitting, we're going to need to go through the Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA process. Again, well understood. We'll go through that, as will, frankly, almost all of these other projects. GM put $650 million into Thacker Pass. They're waiting to see about getting their Department of Energy loan. Ioneer already got theirs for $700 million. That was probably close to 18 months ago. So clearly there is a predisposition for the U.S. government here to facilitate projects like ours being built. May as well get right into sort of the details of the PEA, because this is really what indicates the value. I already gave you the NPVs at a very low, starting value of $13,400 a ton. Here's the table that shows the sensitivity. This is a needle mover for a big company, a big mining house. It's not lost on us. The upfront CapEx here includes 30% contingency built in. Obviously, we have inflationary pressures everywhere already starting to build, but I think this is a very healthy contingency. Most of this capital cost is building a chemical plant on the back end. Put this in comparison to some of the projects that you've seen lately that were going to start, but then weren't going to start, and I'm thinking specifically of Rio and Jadar in Serbia, and that was a $2 billion project. We think that this is a very manageable build. It's going to be very palatable to a number of different companies. The metrics on this in terms of investments are only going to get better. These all-in sustaining costs don't have any optimization taken into account here. We're not using sulfuric acid to burn our way through the clays to get to the lithium. It's more of a sorting process, and we use a reagent. We add that reagent to it, sodium sulfate, and then we wash the lithium out to recover it. And this does not take into account any recycling of these reagents. And the reagent cost is 50% of our cost on an operating basis per ton. I think that we have the opportunity, before we even talk about a potassium sulfate fertilizer, we already have the opportunity to get these operating costs down even more. But I think the simplest way to think about the net present value building here is just simply through rising lithium prices. And, whether or not you truly believe that $13,000 is more demonstrative of a long-term lithium price or $30,000 or $40,000 is. So that's the PEA. We're now working towards PFS right now. We'll be looking to get the drills out into the field within hopefully the next 6 weeks or so. The infill drilling is really the major part of it to get the statistical level of confidence up. We're looking at essentially 10 holes right now going in to give us the measured and indicated that we need. The drilling last year indicated that we have large columns of lithium. One of the surprises last year was that we were finding significantly higher levels of lithium than are in our resource, which is about 1,000 ppm. And as you'll see from those charts on the bottom right, the magenta colors you'll see significantly higher, on the order of 3 and 4 times higher than that 1,000 ppm in the deeper levels, which we think is going to be amenable to borehole mining. But at this point in time, I think it certainly makes sense to have Jeff give you a couple of minutes here just on what we're looking at from a geological perspective.
Sure. So what we're looking at here is a cross-section from the basin. So what we have is a standard basin and range geology of sort of quite deep, narrow sedimentary basins separated by sierras and with faults at either side. What we're talking about here, rather than lithium bound in clays, we believe that the lithium is in the sub 10 micron particle fraction of the sediment within lithium salts, lithium carbonate or something, something like that. And the advantage of that is that it doesn't need any particular extraction method, like a chemically invasive extraction method to get it out. The borehole mining method, in principle, should be very amenable to that. And I guess in terms of the column, we have we have quite wide sections of mineralized material, which gets with the grade going higher with depth, down to who knows what. But at the moment, we're down to a couple of 1,000 feet.
And so what I would add to that is that as we've been going west and we've been finding higher grade mineralization come to the surface, one of the things I want to convey here is that we've tried to maintain as much optionality into this as possible. And the reason we went with the borehole mining was because of the ESG perspective in here, which would not be an open pit with basically the surface input, and understand the importance of that to the OEMs, to the battery makers. But we are continuing to do the technical work to determine if we need to do an open pit, how can we do it, where would we do it, et cetera. So we're advancing on 2 fronts, which is borehole mining and open pit. And on top of that, with our new investor group coming in, we're dedicating some of the resources to going back and looking at brine, which was something that Iconic had done previously. They didn't have the money to do everything they wanted to in terms of all of the technical studies before they went and they drilled. But this time there will be some additional money that is dedicated to looking and see if we actually can find a brine source in here, basically running seismic to see if they can see some structures in here. I think they call them vertical paleo channels, et cetera, to see if they can find where the brine might be coming in. So we certainly, I would suggest, have a three-headed monster going on here. So we want to get to PFS. We don't want to delay that because we understand that that is sort of the conventional tipping point where people are less hesitant to get involved from an investment perspective. But by the same token, we do not want to rule out the potential for brine and possibly a DLE hookup to it or open pit. So again, going back to the size of this project and the optionality that's inherent here and the value that's built into all of that, I think it's pretty tremendous. This is just show you there. All of a sudden, you're getting huge intervals at essentially 3 times the average grade of the resource at 1,000 ppm. These are just a couple of pictures as we get close to the end here. The accessibility of this is just incomparable. This picture is right from the inside of the gate, and I would say it's 100 meters off of Interstate I-95, which is a 4-lane or 2-lane highway in the western United States. Over here in the eastern United States, it's 4-lane the entire way. There are high tension wires literally right over my head. The one in the middle, I'm literally in the middle of Bonnie Claire, just looking around. And again, you can't get an idea of how big this is until you make the drive on this road for approximately 25 minutes to get to here. And again, this lends us towards so many different options depending upon what we find, whether it's borehole mining, continuing along that, or an open pit, or brine, or I would argue combinations of all of those. And again, now you see we've already have material in place. We have locations that are mapped out. We're just going through getting the new board put together, going through the budget, and then getting the contract signed to get the drills out there, and then accelerating towards our PFS. One more time over the ESG aspects of this and what I think makes this unique. The simple way I think about it is sort of this glass. All the clays and everything else is the ping pong balls, and the lithium is the green stuff, the smaller stuff. So you can sort it out and then just work on the green material. And that allows us to process less material. It helps us with the cost. We don't have any acid. We're not using that. And we have tremendous alternative energy all around us, from solar to wind to the Hoover Dam. And again, our stuff doesn't have to go far to get into a battery. And that's something that, the end users really like. Borehole mining we have a vertical drill rig at this point in time that comes in, and we go down to where the horizon that we want, and we start to inject high pressure water and rotate this around. And it creates a cavern, which you can see this sort of fractured material. And this material, which is, think of it almost like a slurry, as a wet sand. This is not very competent material at all. Then gets sucked back up the same borehole. So there's water coming down at the same time. Part of the annulus is taking material back up and going directly into the plant. Very minimal footprint on the surface, right into the plant. You sort out the large stuff that you need. You apply heat. That's the calcination process. You add the reagent. You wash it out with warm water. Then basically it goes to a secondary process to polish it up, and you get your battery grade carbonate. One of the interesting evolutions that I've seen over the course of the past couple of years is the whole tip from, hey, is the industry going to need hydroxide or is it going to need carbonate? And I will tell you that it looked like at the beginning, everybody was hydroxide, hydroxide, hydroxide. I'm hearing more and more, particularly in North America, about people wanting carbonate. In particular, carbonate stores got a shelf life that doesn't go bad, whereas hydroxide does. I think it's worthwhile for us to prove that we could do both to maintain that optionality. Obviously, we'll get an estimate on the CapEx required to put a lithium hydroxide system into there, and we'll see if it makes sense. So I'm going to sum it up here with where we are. I won't spend much time on what we've done, other than we got $11.3 million Canadian in concurrent financing as we close this deal with Iconic, and we have some excellent strategic investors that we're happy to add to the family. And we're going to be, as I said, not only advancing PFS, but we're going to be looking at the brine option again, which I think is very, very exciting. Going forward in the short term, coming out of the metallurgical labs, it'll be battery grade hydroxide, looking for potassium sulfate or potash fertilizer as another byproduct. We're going to evaluate the testing for borehole mining. All along, I'm continuing to talk to the end users and the strategics. I had excellent meetings with over 20, what I call very good potential partners, interested parties, investors when I was at Fast Markets. Again, getting closer, since we're getting closer to PFS, but I've been talking to offtake or about offtake with people for quite a while. I don't think it's too early to talk about it. And I think they're starting to understand that the panacea of brine hooked up to DLE taking care of their short-term needs is not turning out the way that they thought. We're obviously going to be marketing a lot more than we've been able to over the course of the past 2 years. It's going to be something you'll be starting to see our name. And I think obviously that's going to be very important. We want to complete that pre-feasibility study. And obviously, we're always looking around to see if anybody's got something good that we should be looking at. But that's on the back burner right now. Pre-feasibility is obviously the main target that we want to get to. Here's a comp table that Power One's put together for us. I mean, obviously, on any of these metrics, you could tell that we're unknown. To circle back to the investment proposition is, what's this really worth? If it's worth a couple $1 billion and we can get a slice off of it in a couple of years, it's a home run for us. If we build this, we take it all the way out in a few more years and we get an even bigger number, it's a home run. I think we have all of the tailwinds behind us that we need. I cannot think of how you could put a macroeconomic environment with regards to lithium. I don't know how you could put that together in a better way for a commodity. And we're in the place that you want to be if you're doing a project like this in Nevada, in the US. So I think at that point in time, it's best to end this and give some time for questions. Just to give you an idea again, wait and see if there's any questions. So here's literally the gate again of Bonnie Claire, about 100 meters off of I-95. There's the electricity already. So you can see that it's not like right away would have to be gotten, anything crazy like that. That's Route 95, probably less than 100 meters away. And as you can see also, there's nobody in our backyard. Again, no flora, no endangered fauna that we have to worry about, no cultural, restrictions. There's really nobody here. If you're going to build something, this is just an excellent place to have to do it. That road going forward is something that, as I said, took me about 30 minutes to drive down to get to where I am right here. At this point, we're looking west towards California, but that's kilometers away. And as we get here a little bit farther, you're going to see a stake appear in the ground. And over top of that, you'll see the pickup truck, which I don't know. I stepped it out. I tried to get about a half a mile in. There's the stake, and then look at 10 o'clock to that, you'll see the black object. So again, just massive, plenty of optionality here, room to do a number of different things. And now as we come away from the shot, just in case you've never been to this part of the world, meaning Nevada or Arizona, I just have a couple of seconds of, what you can sort of expect and why this is so amenable to mining. And again, it's infrastructure. You see these high tension wires. This is actually on the way to Hoover Dam and the Grand Canyon going the other direction away from Vegas. But as you'll see in a second, the Hoover Dam, which is one of the wonders again in the US, this 25% of this power goes to Nevada, 25% Arizona. And it's, obviously you purchase from this, from this grid, you're buying alternative energy. It just makes the story even better for the OEMs, the people who want to use our lithium in their end products. And obviously we'll end it up here, and which is, folks, if you're going to make investment, you want to do your due diligence. It doesn't get any better than here, right? I mean, Vegas is 2 hours away by car. Obviously, we'd love to have you as shareholders.